Did you hear about Russian President Vladimir Putin's proposal for a military ceasefire with Ukraine? I'll show you some of it in a minute. You can judge it for yourself. You can call it propaganda or a trick or a lie. You can say it ought to be rejected or whatever your point of view is. But before I show it to you, can you please answer my first question? Did you even hear about it? Maybe you did. Here's how the country's self-described newspaper of record reported on it. I'll just quote from the Globe and Mail. They called their headline, "Ahead of Peace Summit, Putin demands to keep parts of Ukraine." There's no detection at all of a peace offer from Putin, is there? I'll read a little bit from the beginning. One day before the start of a summit in Switzerland aimed at advancing a plan to end the war in Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin has made it clear that he is still seeking Kiev's capitulation, not a negotiated peace deal. A weekend meeting at the Bergenstock Resort near Lucerne, which many Western leaders are attending, but Russia wasn't invited to participate in, is expected to end with the endorsement of parts of Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's 10-point peace plan, which calls for a complete Russian withdrawal to pre-2014 borders before Russia seized and illegally annexed the Crimean Peninsula from Ukraine, unquote. So the Bergenstock meeting, that's the peace summit. That's where they call it the peace summit. Putin is the belligerent one. He doesn't want a deal. That's what the Globe and Mail says. That's how they report it. I just have to say, if it's possible to be neutral and objective here, that for Vladimir Zelensky to say that he wants Russia not only to withdraw from all the land that they've invaded in the past 2 years, but also land that they formally annexed in another war 10 years ago, and give that back to Ukraine too, and reparations. And I just don't think that's a real peace proposal. I mean, maybe it's a dramatic opening position, but the idea that Russia would not only completely withdraw from Ukraine, but would also give back cities and industries and territories and a major port with 2 million people that has been annexed into Russia for a decade, so that Ukraine actually ended this war with more territory than it started in 22. I just think that's an offer that's designed deliberately to fail. I mean, they want reparations. They want like a Treaty of Versailles. That's what unconditional victors in a war get. That's not what a smaller country losing gets. Perhaps Russia is doing the same thing with their offer, making absurd demands. But given that I don't think that you've even heard Vladimir Putin's offer yet, let me play it for you. I'm not praising it. I'm not recommending it. I'm not rejecting it. I'm just playing it for you so that you can hear what the other side here says, because I don't quite think that the Western media is reporting on it at all, or if they are, neutrally, which is sort of weird because we talk about the ceasefire now in Gaza all the time, even though clearly Israel and America are making ceasefire offers and Hamas is rejecting it. The war between Russia and Ukraine has cost probably 1 million lives. It's very hard to get accurate figures on either side. So it's 50 times more deadly than the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. And of course, one of the militant sides in the Ukraine-Russia war just happens to have nuclear bombs. So it's just astonishing to me that you have a constant drumbeat for a ceasefire between a democracy and a terrorist group. But this war between two major European powers, one of whom has nuclear weapons, it's cost hundreds of thousands of lives on each side. Do you not find it unusual that there's no peace movement, especially from the left? Anyway, here's a clip from a TV station called RT, which stands for Russia Today, which is a state broadcaster of Putin, which, by the way, is banned on YouTube, which is interesting. You can't find it on YouTube. I don't think RT is hate speech. I think it's propaganda, like CBC is Trudeau's propaganda. I don't think RT has been accused of breaking any law that I know of. It's just that YouTube has decided it will not publish RT videos because Russia invaded another country, which is true. But if that were the case, YouTube wouldn't publish videos from many countries that it does, including, a critic might say, the United States. Okay, here's a clip from Putin, and he uses the word Kiev regime. It's an insult. He refuses to acknowledge that Ukraine is a legitimate entity. He says that there's a little clique in Kiev. So, of course, he's got his language torqued up, but just listen to it, because I'm betting you haven't heard it before.
Today, we're making another real peaceful proposal, a proposal of peace. If they refuse once again in Kiev, it is their business. It is their choice to continue this bloodshed. The reality on the ground will keep shifting and not in favor of the Kiev regime. And the conditions for the talks will change as well. Let me emphasize that the gist of our proposal is not just a ceasefire or a temporary truce, as the West wants it. They want to rearm the Kiev regime. This is not about transforming this into a frozen conflict. We want to put an end to this conflict. Once again, I would like to say that as soon as Kiev agrees to this turn of events as we propose it today, as soon as they agree to withdraw the troops from the Zaporozhye and Kherson regions and the People's Republic, we are ready to launch these talks without any delay.
Here's the second part. And just if he's going to say some words you may not be familiar with, he says Donetsk and Luhansk and Kherson. My accent's terrible. These are regions or oblasts, or they're like provinces that Russia claims are actually ethnically Russian and historically Russian. Now, you can disagree with that, but that's what Russia claims. And I know from personal history that some of those towns and cities and regions change countries. I mean, the country, the city called Lviv today was called Lvov when it was under Russian domination, and it was called Lemberg when it was under Polish control. So the borders have moved around, and I'm not saying I know where the borders ought to be. I suppose I would lean towards self-determination, and I believe in the idea that nations should not invade other sovereign nations. But I'm just explaining to you what Putin says. I mean, he is basically saying that he wants the areas where the Russian invasion has focused on, he wants that under Russian control. Much of it is under Russian control now. Take a look at this video that you won't find on YouTube. It's on Rumble.
These principles are quite straightforward. Ukraine must fully withdraw its troops from the Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republic, from the Kherson and Zaporozhye regions. And let me emphasize that I'm talking about the entire territories of these regions within their administrative borders as they existed under Ukraine. As soon as Kyiv says that it's ready and starts the withdrawal of its troops, and once they say that they're no longer willing to join NATO, just the same moment, immediately, we will stop the fire and launch talks. We will do this immediately. Let me repeat this. At the same time, we guarantee that Ukraine will be able to withdraw its troops safely. These decisions on the withdrawal of troops and the non-aligned status and the dialogue with Russia, which will define Ukraine's future, we believe that these decisions must be taken by Kyiv independently, guided by the genuine interests, national interests of the Ukrainian people, without getting instructions from the West.
So he's basically saying to Ukraine, give up those territories and give up your dream of joining NATO and stop getting instructions from the West. And I hate to say it, but that part about getting instructions from the West, that's an insult, of course. It's meant to demean Vladimir Zelensky as a puppet of the West. But I don't think it helped that the response to this didn't, I mean, Zelensky did make a response, and I'll read some of it shortly, but the response was from NATO. Here's Jens Stoltenberg, used to be the Prime Minister of Norway. He's the boss of NATO, and he responded.
It's not for Ukraine to withdraw forces from Ukrainian territory. It's for Russia to withdraw their forces from occupied Ukrainian land. And this proposal is a proposal that actually means that Russia should have the right to occupy even more Ukrainian land. All the 4 provinces that they claim are not Ukrainian. So this just demonstrates that this is not a proposal made in good faith, but this is a proposal that actually means that Russia should achieve their war aims by also expecting, or by expecting that Ukraine should give up significantly more land than Russia has been able to occupy so far. So this is not a peace proposal. This is a proposal of more aggression, more occupation, and it demonstrates in a way that Russia's aim is to control Ukraine, and that has been the purpose of Russia since the beginning of this war. And that's a blatant violation of international law, and that's also the reason why NATO allies continue to support Ukraine.
I mean, that really does play into the hands of the Russian side here, which claims that Ukraine has been turned into nothing but a Western or NATO stalking horse.